Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. I'm Bryce Matheson, and as always, this episode is brought to you by Lender. Lender is a loan management software tool designed to help you with every aspect of your business, from origination to servicing to payoff. Lender helps you with document generation, helps you with collecting monthly payments, dispersing monthly payments to your investors, taking in new loan applications, giving your borrowers a portal that they can log into, giving your investors a portal that they can log into. Pretty much every aspect of everything that you do inside of your lending business can be done and facilitated through Lender. You can check that out by going to joinlender.com. That's LENDR, joinlender.com. Now, on to the episode.
Okay, real quick, just another reminder that Quinn and I will both be at the American Lending Conference in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's September 3rd and 4th. We'll have a booth there set up for lenders. So if you happen to be at that conference, definitely swing by. I'd love to talk to you, say hi. I think we're going to make it more of a regular thing. We're going to start attending more conferences and shows because there's a ton of value that you can get, obviously from the education, but if nothing else, just from interfacing and interacting with other lenders in the community. So we're really excited to do that. Okay, today's episode is talking about servicing. So I saw something that was, in my opinion, kind of concerning. I was scrolling through one of just the private lending Facebook groups this week, and there was a discussion around servicing and which third-party servicer should I use and should I even use one? And the responses were fine, but in my opinion, it was a little bit concerning just because I feel very strongly that you should service your own loans and keep them on your own books and keep them in-house. And the main reason for that, well, there's a lot of reasons for that, but the main reason is it's a profit center. There's money that is to be made with this. And when you have the right systems in place, it's really not that difficult. So we're going to kind of dive into this and talk about all the pros and cons and my own personal opinions on this. You may totally disagree. And if you do, that's absolutely okay. But this is my own personal opinion. So take that for what it's worth. Okay, there are, if you're not familiar with servicers, there are some big ones out there. The biggest one that most people use are called FCI. There's quite a few out there. There's SLS. There's dozens, if not more. And what they do is they typically just charge like a monthly recurring fee that's anywhere from $25 to $35 per loan, sometimes higher, just to handle the servicing. So what they do is they do all of the payment collection. They let those funds settle, and then they disperse them to you or the different parties or whatever. And then the nice thing, admittedly, is if a borrower has a question or whatever, they don't call you directly. They call the servicer. And this is what happens with typical Fannie Freddie loans too, right? So say you go to your local, for example, in Idaho, we have a local mortgage company called Idaho First Mortgage. What they do is, and this is very common in the industry, they originate this loan, they close the loan, they have a small line of credit that they just kind of use in revolving, and they can use this to close more and more loans. Then they sell that loan off to typically a big bank like Chase or Wells Fargo or whatever. And then you interface with a third-party servicer. And if you have questions, or if you have late payments, or you need to do this or adjust this, or maybe you need to recast your mortgage or whatever it may be, you call the servicer, you get a call center, sometimes somebody with an accent, and it's just kind of a pain in the ass. It is easier for the lender. And I realize, like, if you're a huge lender and you're doing a ton of volume and you've got hundreds, if not thousands of loans, okay, maybe a third-party servicer is just what you need to do. That being said, if you have less than 100 loans, or maybe even less than 200 loans, chances are you're not going to be listening to this podcast. The majority of the people who listen to this podcast are small private lenders. That's who we cater to. And they have anywhere from 4, 5, 6 loans all the way up to 150. And that's kind of the sweet spot. In my opinion, if you are one of the smaller private lenders with 50 million or less in private capital, you should be servicing your own loans. Now, why do people use a third-party servicer? Easy. It is definitely easier to offload this burden to somebody else. There's less operational headache. There is fairly minimal cost. But in my opinion, like I said, some of the kind of burdens with that is the initial onboarding. There's a burden with that for sure, because you kind of have to like set up your structure, and this is how we do things. This is our onboarding template, and all of our loans kind of fit this until they don't. And then you have something weird that's outside the box. Then you kind of have to, there's a lot of like finagling and adjusting that you have to do. There's also kind of this handoff between the borrower communication, and you have to tell them, hey, you're going to deal with me for this part, but after this part, you're going to deal with somebody else. And then they're like, who am I dealing with? And what do you have to do with my loan? And it's just, there's a kind of an expectation and some communication that you have to set up there with your borrowers. And that's not really fun either. So in my opinion, why I believe you should keep servicing in-house is private lenders are a dime a dozen. As much as I hate to say that, there are a lot of private lenders out there. And if you're going to make the experience for the borrower more difficult, chances are they'll go with somebody else. But this is very much a one-on-one, like person-to-person business. And so if you have that personal touch and they can just call you with any questions or anything that they need, that speaks volumes. And I guarantee it's not a detractor right now until you have a borrower who does have to go through a third-party servicer. They're not going to love it. Okay. Profitability. Outside of that, servicing is a revenue stream for us. So for example, I see a lot of private lenders who do this, and please do not do this. What they'll do is they will charge 2 points and 12%. The 12% they give all the way to the investor, and then you just operate on your 2 points. And so basically what it is it's a volume game, because the only time that you make money is when you originate and close a new loan. You make your 2 points, you move on to the next one, you make the 2 points, because all of that 12% is going directly to your investors. Please, 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 please do not do this. We charge 3 points and 14% on any loan that we do. Straight out of the gate, no exceptions. That's what we do. All of our loans are 3 and 14. We pay our investors anywhere from 9 to 10.5%, which means that I have a yield spread between 9 or 10 and 14%. So on every loan that I do, I make my 3 points. But then on top of that, we also get the servicing spread or the yield spread just from having to deal with managing this loan and keeping it on the books. Now, I love this because if a borrower does call me and they have questions, guess what? I'm the one who originated it, so we can help them. If there's a late payment, we can give some leniency. We can help them kind of restructure things. We can help hold their hand. And we have a lot of experience in fix and flip loans. So like maybe we can help them out with, have you tried this? Or I see these pictures, but this piece is a huge detractor to me. If you call another servicer, they're not going to do that. They're just a person in a call center. They have no idea, no concept of what this is or how that works. So there's a lot of pros to keeping the servicing on the books, mainly because it's cost center. I guarantee you, if you have a note rate of 12% and you have your investors who you are paying 12%, you are operating for free. Think about that. You are operating for free. You are servicing this loan for free. You're doing all the work, and your investors get all of the upside and none of the downside. So think about that. I know there's some of you listening that are doing that. Please don't do that. Please, please, please make sure you get some sort of a servicing or a yield spread, at least 2%. That's kind of industry average is, you pay your investors 10%, you charge 12%, at least 2% should be coming to you for the headache of just having to deal with this and manage this. Now, talking about the headache, in my opinion, it really is not that much of a headache, if at all, honestly, because we have the software and the tools in place, aka lender, to take care of it for you. So when you go through and you originate this loan, you take all of the information from origination and it just automatically moves over into servicing anyway. So you're collecting these monthly payments from your borrowers. The monthly payments automatically get handled and added to the payoff statement. And then when they get paid, it removes it from the payoff statement. So you can see kind of this log in this transaction. But then say we have a borrower that says, okay, well, I don't have enough money to have this drawn on the 1st. Can we move this to the 5th? That's when my paycheck hits or whatever. Cool. I just go in and I change that payment date from August 1st to August 5th, and then it just automatically auto drafts. And then there's other things too where like, okay, say I have a loan that is about to pay off. Typically, you have to go to the servicer and request a payoff statement. And there's a delay there. And it takes, a day or two, honestly, to get a payoff statement. Whereas me, I don't have to wait that long. I can just go in, click a button, say generate payoff statement, and I have it right here. And I know line by line by line what happened with this loan. And so I can generate that payoff statement in seconds and give it to the title company. It's a breeze. It's a piece of cake. The other thing is, in my opinion, it builds credibility and trust. You're talking about your borrowers who they have a one-stop shop. They can come to you and ask you questions directly, which again, that's huge. That's huge. Why would you not want to have a one-stop shop instead of having to say, hey, go talk to FCI about your late payment? I don't know. It just, they talk to you directly. It builds that trust, that credibility. And in this business where people are everything, it makes a huge difference. So, okay. Now there are some points that I admit are valid when it comes to outsourcing and using a third party service. So a lot of people will say outsourcing is easier. Yeah, true, to a point, but only after the painful kind of onboarding process with getting all your templates and all of your like criteria set up with a third party servicer. And then you also give up the long-term profit, which we just talked about. You're not making money from servicing these loans. You're paying something instead. A lot of people will say, I don't want the headache of dealing with these loans. Is there some level of a headache? Maybe a little bit, yeah. But if you have the right tools and systems in place, I promise you it's not that bad. And the things that I just talked about, like generating a payoff statement or pushing a payment or whatever, absolutely is worth it if you have the right systems and software in place. A lot of people will also say, well, the margin is too small to matter. And I disagree with that. I think if you're making, $100 to $150 per month on the monthly payments, that's substantial, especially if you have 100 to 150 loans. Like that's thousands of dollars per month that you can have by just keeping it in-house. So it's significant. So big picture, servicing, in my opinion, is a lever that can really take your business and just eke out a little bit of additional profit. Rather than giving it to somebody else, you might as well just keep it in-house. It really is not that difficult. It helps strengthen investor relations too, because you are not giving away this entire yield and you're interfacing with the investors regularly. And so if there's ever a question about what is going on with the borrower or this payment or why is it late or whatever, you don't have to say, let me talk to FCI really quick and I'll get back to you, because that's going to happen. You will have a borrower who will stop paying and then investors don't get their funds. They're like, what's going on? And I promise you, it doesn't look good if you say, I don't know what's going on. It strengthens borrower relations, and ultimately it makes you the real operator in the space, which in my opinion, that's why we're in this business in the first place. So again, in summation, I would highly recommend, if you have less than 200 loans, less than 250 loans, keep servicing in-house. It's really not that difficult. There's a lot of ads as opposed to value detractors. Maybe if your goal is to get to 500-600 loans, like sure, okay, maybe at that point. But again, if that's your goal, you're probably not listening to this podcast anyway. And so I highly recommend that you keep everything in-house. My goal with Holbrook Capital is to keep everything small and tight. I really don't know that I necessarily want to exceed $10 to $15 million in balance sheet capital, because it's substantial. Like it is a decent amount of work to go in and constantly market for borrowers and underwrite these loans and service them and handle all of that. My goal is not to get to $100 million in balance sheet capital. We have people in the mastermind group that I'm a member of that have literally hundreds of millions of dollars on their balance sheet. And they have a dedicated girl that all she does all day long is handle draw requests. That sounds like a nightmare, and I don't want to deal with that. So, like I said, my goal is to stay small, 10 to 15 million in balance sheet capital, and just kind of rinse and repeat and have this really great lifestyle business where I'm not necessarily chained to a desk. I can kind of live my life, but also have a significant, substantial income recurring every single month from all of these loans that we do over and over and over again. So anyway, take that for what it's worth. Hopefully that's valuable. We'll talk to you next week.